So it is 5:30 and I am calling this meeting to order. First, a reminder that meetings of the select board are meetings conducted in public. They are not meetings of the public. Nonetheless, members of the public shall be afforded reasonable opportunities to express opinions about matters conducted.
I'm not as grumpy as I was.
Oh,
Shush.
I'm still grumpy.
Order in the room.
Sorry.
Nonetheless, members of the public shall be afforded reasonable opportunities to express opinions about matters conducted by the select board so long as order is maintained. The rules for public comment are: at the conclusion of a select board discussion on an agenda item, but before any action is taken, there may be 10 minutes afforded to public comment. Comments made by the public must be addressed to the chair, to the select board as a whole, and not to any individual members of the select board or members of the public. Members of the public must be acknowledged by the chair before speaking. If a member of the public has already spoken on a topic, they shall not be recognized again until others have first been given the opportunity to comment. Order and decorum shall be maintained throughout the meeting. Personal, impertinent, threatening, or profane remarks will not be tolerated. For those who are participating via Zoom, please note that chat is not an appropriate avenue for public comment. All public comments must be made verbally when acknowledged by the chair. Please silence all cell phones, and a reminder to all that this meeting is being recorded and may appear on the internet. Okay, so are there any adjustments to the order of the agenda?
I have none.
Anybody else have any? Okay. Oh, sorry, Fletcher, did you say something? You're all set?
No, I have nothing to
Okay.
change in the agenda.
Okay, moving on to select board comments and remarks. Does anybody on the select board have anything to report or say? Fletcher?
No, I think I'm good.
Okay. Okay, moving on to the approval of minutes for November 26, 2024. Can I hear a motion? Don't speak up at once.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes of November 26, 2024. Anybody have any changes or additions?
No.
Fletcher, you weren't here. Actually, Fletcher wasn't here, and
I wasn't here.
Right.
you weren't here, so it's just three of us.
No changes.
So hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. That's that. Next up is the warrants to the treasurer.
Make a motion to approve and execute the warrants to the treasurer upon completion of review.
For a second.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve and execute the warrants upon completion of review. Karen?
Payroll warrant dated December 13th, 2024 in the amount of $22,396.71.
Any questions or comments on the payroll? Fletcher?
No, thank you.
Okay, moving on to accounts payable.
Accounts payable dated November 11th through December 13, 2024 in the amount of $77,277.63.
It's a lot of sevens.
I know. And it's a small warrant.
Relatively, sure.
Relatively small, yes. There's really nothing that really out of the ordinary. Camoin Associates, $7,458.75. Casella Waste was $8,872.92. That's for sludge removal.
Camoin is a grant, right?
Camoin is part of a grant and part of ARPA funds.
Funds, okay.
And we're almost through that process, by the way,
Okay.
which I will bring up later.
Alright. Does anybody have any, Putney Diner?
Putney Diner was for the fire department, department party that was held on Saturday, and it was food for the elections.
Oh,
So there's two separate invoices.
alright. Anybody have any questions about the Accounts payable? Fletcher?
No, I'm good.
All right, hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to the fire and EMS status report. The first thing on here is the Volunteer Firefighters Association donation, which is Billy.
Yes. I have a letter and a check to present. I will read the letter that accompanies the check. To the town of Putney, on behalf of Putney's firefighters and medical responders and the entire membership of the Putney Volunteer Firefighters Association, please find enclosed a check in the amount of $10,000 to be applied toward the purchase of the Putney Fire Department's new LifePak 15 cardiac monitor. This key piece of life-saving equipment is expected to serve the town for many years, as the last LifePak has. We deeply appreciate the many people and businesses whose past and ongoing contributions make it possible for the association to support the efforts of Putney's first responders.
That's great.
Thank you, Billy.
Who wants it?
How much was the total for the life
I
pack?
think 21,
21.
22, something like
Nice.
that.
Yes, so this is a great,
That's great.
thank you very much for this
You're welcome.
contribution. It goes a long way.
Yeah.
And I guess there's a report for you.
Yes, Evan's not here, and Brian's not here, so they asked me to do this quick report. This is just a summary of Putney Fire and Rescue call data since the last meeting. Actually, October 28th to December 10th, so I guess it's a little more than the last meeting. Just make sure I'm reading this correctly. Total fire and EMS calls for service was 69. 27 fire calls and 35 EMS calls, 7 co-responses, meaning both sides of the department responded. Those were primarily motor vehicle crashes. Would you like me to just run through the calls by type? There's a breakdown here.
Yeah, so can I just ask a question though? So with the co-response, is that included in the other two or is that in addition?
That is a good question. Is Evan here?
It must be independent if you add them up.
I don't actually know the answer
Okay,
to that
I
off the
was
top of my
curious.
head. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Or
Well,
do
if
you
you add them,
have a sense?
It's
total, they
Oh,
equal
wow.
69.
It's just a curious question. It's not important. All right.
Actually, I think it's separate because 30, 50, right.
Yeah,
It's
Total,
separate.
they equal 60.
Thank you.
69.
That's how we got to 69.
Math. Okay.
Right.
Got it. Okay. Thank you.
I don't know if I need to go through the whole list. I mean, there were 9 psychiatric emergencies. That's worth pointing out. And then an assortment of other call types. On the EMS side, 2 cardiac calls, 2 difficulty breathing calls. And on the fire side, there were 10 fire alarm activations, 9 mutual aid calls, which is also probably a significant number. Trees and wires 2, and then an assortment of other various types of calls that were fireside calls. We had 11 calls up to landmark for EMS responses. 5 of those were psychiatric. We had 4 fire alarm activations at Landmark College. We completed a really good respiratory emergency training in November. The December training is TBD due to timing with the holidays. I'm not sure what's going to happen with that. In January, we'll be doing a trauma training. February, and these are EMS trainings I'm referring to. In February, we'll be doing an environmental and other medical emergency training that's focused on toxins, overdoses, and diabetic emergencies. Eric might be able to speak to the fire trainings that have been going on, which would be in addition to the EMS trainings.
Yeah, we've done a bunch of different trainings, just completed one last night, which was use of extrication tools, more just getting used to them and kind of involving some fun, playing a game of Jenga. We've got some trainings lined up, flagger course, and some other different things that we're getting in the works. Let's
So can I just point out too on this report that Fire Mutual Aid given 8 calls. So that's, I don't know what the average is. These reports, because we have them now, we can track the data.
Yeah.
And Evan and I were on ESO and we're gonna inquire how to export some of that data so we're not doing it twice. But we're starting to get our heads around that too. And Evan Martin and I went to Landmark and had a conversation with their health services to start talking about which calls warrant, having our department go to the college. So that door is open right now and we're gonna continue to work with them.
Okay.
So a lot is happening behind the scenes.
Yeah, I love the report style because it's so digestible. That's super helpful. And I guess in my work on the Fire and Rescue Advisory Committee, I'm becoming so much more aware of important information in addition to the report, the calls that we've made as a town. I'm becoming much more aware of that, the importance of our reporting and our tracking data and our filing reports so that we as a town are not liable as things come up, right? So I wonder if maybe in the reports that we get as a select board, whether we might start including some of that information in there. Like, how are we doing with our reporting? Are we up to date? If not, how far behind are we? That kind of information too might be, I think, is important for us as a select board and the town to know.
So I can update you right now. We can put it on paper too, but it just takes a little more time.
Right.
Evan's doing the bulk of the reporting right now. I was able to go into ESO. Since June 1st, we've had 220 calls. I'm not able to break out all those calls because ESO is not that user friendly, but we're gonna get there. So I just wanted to throw that out there as well. There was something else I was gonna say, Peg, but
It's not at all to like shine a light on deficits or anything like that. It's more just like as a town, I feel like call data is important, but there's also other data that I would really love to hear. Also, like how's our volunteer recruitment going? How's our, the onboarding of volunteers and the reporting. Those are two things that are up in my mind as things that I think as a select board it would be good for us to hear about.
Okay. Duly noted.
Thank you.
So the select board have any other comments about the report? Fletcher?
No, like Peg, I guess I do have a comment. Like Peg, I appreciate that we're getting some digestible data now. This is good stuff to hear.
Okay, thank you. Are there comments from the public online about the fire department status report? Any comments in the room? Okay, thanks Billy for both the donation and for the report. So moving on to the town manager's report.
Right. So I'd like to announce that the Putney Fire and Rescue Community Conversation has been rescheduled for December 16th, which is Monday evening from 5:30 to 7 at the Putney Fire and EMS station. Notices are out on social media and at the library, post office. So we'll continue to get that rescheduled notice out.
Some people were asking if there was a Zoom option.
No.
Okay, that's good to know.
The winter parking ban is in effect. The highway is in winter mode, taking care of snow, rain, with plowing, sanding, and salting. They plan to cut some brush on the roadsides that are hanging low. They're maintaining equipment, and Lenny Howard wanted to make sure that we gave a shout out to the highway department for their dedication and hard work entering into the storm season. Folks did work Thanksgiving and the day after, which are both holidays, cleaning up after the snow event that we had, and I'm sure they'll be out again tonight with all this rain. So they're trying to stay ahead of the storms. Renew Town Hall, the kickoff meeting was Thursday, December 5th with the project team. So I worked with Vermont Integrated Architects. We're working through the AIA contract, which is like 25 pages long. I did run it by legal counsel and he had no concerns about it. The team has a scheduled meeting for tomorrow for a walkthrough with all of the contractors. So there's a structural engineer, SV Associates, and of course I didn't grab that. SV Associates is going to be working on the building as well. There's people coming from Burlington, and Keene, New Hampshire. So if anybody wants to come tomorrow, it starts at 10 o'clock. If you want to be a part of that. We also are contracted with North Hill Solutions. They're on board with the Renew Town Hall team for development services, and this $7,000 of work is covered under a READY grant. So they will be working with us to come up with a capital budget and funding sources and project costs. And they're going to also assist with a Vermont Community Development Program ADA modification grant, which could be huge. So things are starting to roll on Town Hall renovation project. So I'll keep you posted. And the board is at any time, if you have questions or if you want to participate in the meeting, you can.
Okay.
And the public too. Taxes were due on December 6th. We're in a good position. We have approximately like $250,000 that's not collected.
Okay.
And another 96 from the first payment. So
Okay.
I think we're in a good, I'm pleased with the payments that have come in to date, given the reappraisal
Yeah.
values.
Is that higher than normal or is it on par with?
No, it's on track.
Okay.
It's on track.
That's good.
So, I looked through the, well, today I went through a tax sale webinar for VLCT. Because there's new law, so we have to be very careful when we notice and
Yeah.
do tax sales now. And I'm not going to bore you with all the details, but delinquent taxes due to date is $99,104.51. So 32 properties are delinquent. I have one that goes back to 2011, but it needs to have a probate estate
One of
open.
those, okay.
So I'm gonna look into seeing how that can be done, but the 2023 taxes, what's due is $55,277.79. So overall, I mean, you can't complain about that.
When you say delinquent, you mean
Delinquent.
more than a year?
More than a year.
Okay, so
Yes.
not this current. tax
Not the year
season,
we're
before
in.
the, okay.
Yeah, I don't even look at that.
Okay.
Because those are current taxes
Right,
until after February
okay.
or March for us this year.
Marxist, yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
So sewer and water delinquent over 30 days is $28,458.71. So I can process delinquent utilities the same as property taxes. So if somebody hasn't paid, they can go to tax sale according to the policy. It's a lot of work and I'm not ready to do any of that
Wow,
yet.
that's interesting. So for
Yeah.
utility,
Yeah.
outstanding utilities.
Yeah, because you can have somebody that doesn't pay their utility bill for, 2 years. But We have to at least offer them a payment agreement, so that'll be the first step.
That's part of the new law, right?
Yes. As I was speaking to our chair this afternoon, CCI Managed Services is our new IT provider. It has not been a smooth transition, but we're trying to be patient and, but they were here today for 3 hours and, because things are just, when our old IT provider closed, normally what would happen is when you change, your old provider gives the new provider all the information they need to connect all their new equipment. And that didn't happen. So CCI is kind of running blind.
They're essentially starting over. Yeah.
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 And I'm like, why don't you just take that out and put something else in there? It's like, I don't know the language, so. But it has been frustrating, but we're working through it.
Okay.
So, let me see. I think that's, well, we have active grants, as I had said. I have 6 active grants right now in the amount of $753,111.62. 2 are FEMA, and 1 is the big municipal energy resilience program grant. And the only other thing I need to mention to this board tonight is we may have a potential conflict on December 18th. I didn't realize that the Housing Needs Assessment Study final report was going to be
Okay.
introduced to the public at next stage.
Do we have a secondary date?
I don't have one because I haven't been able to get to my doodle because, you know, the internet's been all
Right. Okay.
weird.
All right.
That's the date we had.
We'd
Yeah, we're gonna do budgets
Yeah.
on the 18th, so I need to know how this board feels. Would you rather me find a different day? It's
let's-
getting late.
What's it in conflict with?
The housing needs assessment report, right?
Yeah,
I thought they were doing a whole Saturday morning thing.
we're doing that this,
That's
Saturday.
Saturday. That's for
That's-
comments, though. I think.
yeah, it's for us as a group. And I didn't realize, because there's so many meetings, I can't keep track of all of them.
Yeah.
I'm not sure it's
How
being
many of us were
recorded.
planning on going to the housing needs assessment?
I was planning to come to this meeting.
Okay.
I'd rather be at the budget meeting, just because
Yeah.
we're coming down to the wire.
Right. Okay. I'm just gonna state it. Most people don't come to a budget meeting, so
Right.
I'm not sure that it would really interfere with anybody's plans to also go to the housing assessment meeting. That said, I don't want to, prevent anybody from coming to the budget meeting.
We can have it recorded and people can,
Yeah.
that's
So
the
maybe
alternative.
that's the best solution.
Yeah.
We're not gonna decide anything on that budget meeting, it's the first go around and, so it's not set in stone,
No,
so maybe we should keep it. What do other people, what do you guys feel like? Does that
I'm
sound?
fine keeping it, yeah.
Yeah. Fletcher, are you okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay. So I guess we'll keep it.
thank you.
Didn't get out of a meeting. Okay. Are you
I'm done.
all done? Okay, does anybody on the select board have any other comments about their, town manager's report? Fletcher?
Karen, about the delinquent properties on the tax sale list, you gave us a dollar figure. Do you know how many properties that is?
It's 32 properties, but they're not on tax sale, Fletcher. And some of those properties are only like, they 2023, so.
I'm sorry, they're only what?
They only owe taxes for 2023.
Yeah, no, I was asking about the ones you called delinquent, which you defined as more than a year in arrears,
Yes, 32 properties.
32 properties. My experience is that that the tax sales usually happen all at once sometime in the summer. Is there any benefit to doing a rolling process with, starting with the oldest delinquencies and sort of working through the stack that way rather than leaving it all for one big gulp?
I don't do all one big gulp. So my process is to either get people to enter into a payment agreement, and when the first notice goes out that the property is going out to tax sale, then people come in and they pay. So usually I get maybe 4 properties that might go to tax sale. Right now I have one property that owes 4 years and it's raw land. So, I have some manufactured homes that won't ever go to tax sale because it's not worth the time and the effort, right? So those are the people that I try to work with. The last tax sale we had was in 2018. Because when I get my list ready and it goes over to the attorney's office, most of those people end up paying, or they enter into an agreement.
Okay.
And Fletcher, since I've been here as town manager, we've always allowed 2 years for delinquent taxes. And given that we went through COVID and, now we have the new reappraisal values, I have to at least try to work with people. And if you're doing a rolling basis tax sale, that's a lot of time and effort and attorney costs. So I just soon have, whatever that number might be and just, do it. We would never have 32 properties go to tax sale at one time. It would never happen.
I didn't expect it would, but my experience has been that once they get to tax sale, they all get put on together, and I didn't know whether there was any process, any benefit to doing them one at a time. When you run out of patience, when you run out of options with them, whether there's a reason to say not to say at that point, okay, we're going to schedule this for a tax sale.
Yeah, well, I usually do it like in the spring, Fletcher. Right after like town meeting, so April. That way we can collect that money too in the same fiscal year.
Yeah, my experience is that there's several steps that you have to go through with each one of them, so it makes more sense to bulk them.
Right.
Than do them one at a time.
Right.
Something just happened in my Zoom. Did we just lose connection?
Fletcher, can you hear us?
I didn't hear what that last comment was.
Okay, can you hear us now?
Yeah.
Okay.
I can hear you.
You can, okay.
You're good, Brian?
We can hear you.
Right.
But we had a technical glitch, we think, but I think we're back to normal. Right, does anybody else have any other questions? Does anybody online, public, have any questions about the town manager's report? Anybody in the room? Anybody else on the select board? Right, moving on to boards, committees, and commissions. The first one is the Equity Inclusion Advisory Committee. Is that you, Nate? Or is this
Swift.
Swift, are you there?
I'm here. I've
Hi.
missed you all. It's been a minute.
Yes.
Sorry, I got scared away by fire department stuff, but hello, glad to be back. I am here. I thought I would be able to share my screen, but I think it's blocked and it might, I don't know how complicated that is, Karen, to let me share my screen. I don't need to.
Can I see screen options?
Oh, hold on.
It says it's disabled.
At one moment.
If it's complicated, I don't have to.
It's not clicking on it. There we go. Okay, try it now.
Oh, yay. Great. Okay, thank you. It's here. So, this is,
We have a picture of a Zoom.
yeah, I'm pulling up the right thing.
Okay.
So basically it's been a long time coming that the equity committee is coming to you with wanting to present onboarding training specific to diversity, equity, inclusion, justice. The primary reason it's been so long is because it's just we have not been able to find the right course. So I think what we're doing is we're kind of throwing the ball into your court, also with the specificity that you have access to all the VLCT trainings and that whole database. And maybe there's an amazing gem in there for onboarding. What I wanted to show, and basically what we're recommending is instigating a program where new employees, definitely to start, would do some specific onboarding DEIJ training. That's what's called an evergreen course that basically is just a one-time fee. It's a similar thing every time. And while it can feel kind of rote, at least it's the beginning of conversations and starts a process. And at least just starts the wheels turning in someone's head, like even a 3-hour course or something like that as they're onboarding. What we'd love to do is, and what we're asking, recommending is that creating a system for all existing employees and elected officials going through the program as well to get everybody up to date and then any new people included. The primary block is finding the training. What I wanted to show was a suggestion that we had. This is actually a program that's based around, this is e-courses that are for college campuses, but it gives you a sense of what is out there specifically for DEIJ, like little mini courses. This is Speak Out e-courses, and they have a bunch of different topics. They have one on race, power, and privilege, which is building confidence around talking about race and racism. This one is called Calling In, Navigating Challenging Conversations and Cultivating Compassion. This one is Beyond Land Acknowledgement, talking about land back movements and occupation of native lands. And then this one is about disability. It's very cheeky, but talking about disability justice. And this is around how to create brave and safer spaces in an anxious world. I think that one isn't as much on, wouldn't be as helpful, but there's at least this platform offers something where it's a package of 3 of them where you would cover disability, race, and Indigenous sort of movements that are going on right now. How now this is gauged at a college campus and how that can be in college campuses, and they're affordable. This whole package is $75. And I guess we're imagining or hoping that maybe a group of people do it together to save some money or whatever it is. I can stop sharing my screen. But how do I stop? I don't want, there we go. And I shared that link with my original request to be on the agenda, so that should be accessible to y'all. It's basically just our recommendation of adding some sort of system for onboarding. And starting those conversations in people's heads and starting reflection. And we're happy to help with trying to find the course. We just want to start having it with more brains because we're hitting this wall. And maybe that mostly is not having access to the VLCT database of courses and things like that. But I'm not sure if they even really exist in there. That's kind of it. Not very formal, but there you go. And I'm got neck injury, so I look like Dracula, so pardon that.
It's very stylish.
It's a towel and a heating pad.
Hey, whatever works. Okay, does the select board have any comments?
Yeah, so I'm unclear. Did you say that you haven't looked at what VLCT has or that they don't have?
we haven't access, so it's been really difficult. I think like Nate's expired, and then I don't have access to looking into the VLCT land at all.
I don't have a feeling that they have a lot of DEI specific training. They have they have their own roundtable internal to their company. What do we call organization? But
And when you and Eileen, you and me and the HR person in Brattleboro met, they were looking a little bit in there and they had it up and we were looking at them and they were like these little $5 courses. It was like specific to budgets, how to make sure that they're accessible to everyone, like, I don't know, like that tax letters go out in a certain way that there was very specific. There's not these sort of broad strokes that are teaching like a broad stroke anti-bias training in 3 hours. And that's what we're recommending.
yeah, okay. The only other thing I can think of that's a little bit similar is Brattleboro contracts with the Richards Group, and they do have some trainings that are on anti-bias and anti-harassment that get into a little bit of the DEI work, but it's not specific. It's not specifically DEI. But in any event, I mean, I'm on board with at least making it available to people. I don't know. I mean, as far as new employees are concerned, that's Karen's bailiwick. So I guess the question is how much time can we spend on, but we were talking a little bit about onboarding people, which I think is a great idea. I think there'd be, a formal onboarding process would be great for new employees.
Yeah.
Not just that, on other things as well. I'm babbling now. Does anybody else have any comments? Moving it into the room, Mike?
Yeah, thank you. Swift, I want to thank you and the committee for this ongoing work. There are some who are suggesting the recent election is diminishing the need for DEI, and I think in Vermont we've seen just the opposite. We had the shooting of 3 Palestinians in Burlington this year, the rise in anti-Semitism, and the ongoing harm and bias to LGBTQ Vermonters, I think shows that the need for this is as strong as ever. So thank you for taking this on.
Thank you. Are there comments online from the public?
I'll say another thing, but I'll let anyone else speak first.
Go ahead, Swift.
The other gateway into this is through the Ideal Vermont work that we are hoping to do as well, which I had that open too. It's like, what does it stand for? Oh, I have it right here. Yay, look at me. Okay. It is Inclusion, Diversity, Equity, Action, and Leadership, which is a proposal that was started by the state to create more cohesion of DEI work that's being done across the state, and also to foster not just connection, but resources and things like that. So I'm hoping that once we start that, I might just be able to, maybe I'm just dipping my toe into that community. I'll be able to, and maybe I'll be the start, but I hope that I'll be the one that's asking for resources and getting a quick response of like, oh, here's this great one.
Yeah, that'd be a good place to start too. Yeah. I think the trick is to find something that your average person would be willing to sit through, without making it too esoteric. That's not the right word, but too specific, I guess. Especially if you're like bombarding them with all sorts of other information about health insurance and how many days of the week you need to work and where's your desk and all that other things. But I appreciate that you've at least identified one spot. I haven't looked at it. So maybe we can have that conversation a little bit offline.
Great.
Thank
you.
Okay.
Nate, had we talked about wanting to do the Ideal Vermont stuff now too? That was the only other thing.
Talk about that now.
Not quite.
Okay, never mind.
Okay. All right.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. All right, next up is the Wilson Wetlands Stewardship Committee Flood Resilient Communities Fund Report.
Is it okay if I put my papers down on the corner here?
Yeah, that's fine. Well, we need our podium, yeah.
My name is Mary Quinn. I'm chair of the Wilson Wetland Stewardship Committee, which oversees the Wilson Wetland Preserve, which is a town-owned land. It's quarter of this property that abuts Sand Hill Road, and we're also a subcommittee of the Conservation Commission. So I want to give a really short cliff version, just so we can wrap this up, because next year will be more steps going forward. So state offered Vermont Flood Resilient Communities funds. They were ARPA funds. And what we chose to do was apply for a project scoping study. It was develop applications for possible projects to for us to then go forward for funding. So this is not about choosing something right now. It's just finding out what a consultant would say. These are things we're going after. Jane Coleus and Ann Curry applied, and in January 2022, we got the town received $3,105 in June 2022. We hired a contractor, Fitzgerald Environmental Associates, in October 22. So again, I want to say this was for study only. As the project went on, the Fitzgerald Associates presented the town with 11 alternatives, and they said they would give a full report on 3 of them. So they asked us to choose 3 of them. The committee did choose 3. We brought them to the select board, and the select board approved going forward with that. And I can tell you what the 3 are. The first was alternative A, was a flood bench south of the bridge, and what the main thing was to get the water coming down up onto the floodplain to help with that. The alternative B was to replace 4 culverts west of the bridge, is where the road normally actually always washes out, and when there's a big storm. 3 since I've been on the committee for 13 years. And also replace with a large squash culvert. They would all be on the western section of the road. And the alternative C was to remove a section of the road in the wetland area, basically close to where the parking lot is to close to where the trailer is, just across the whole wetland plain. We had a walk, they gave us a draft final report. We had a walk on Sand Hill showing people where the project would take place if they were to happen. And Fitzgerald Environmental Associates made a presentation to the community in April 2024. Also, Eileen, you were at that meeting.
I was there via Zoom, yeah.
And after that, on June 24th, they gave us their final report, which you do have in your packet. Mine is all written up, but you have something very similar to it. We sent their report. In their report, they have considerations for the town's next steps to be like, and we can go over those next year, but we sent their report to the state to make sure that it met the requirements of the grant. It did. So the grant process is totally finished. The last thing that, Eric, I see you are looking at, of the people who came to the public events, we had cards for them to fill out on the second page of your your report that looks like this, it tells you the results of what the people had filled out in shorthand form, and then you could read through the whole thing and see what people said. A lot of people had additional comments. This was very enlightening, and I'm really glad we got 31 cards back, but there were more than 31 people because some of them were just from families, you know. But we had between the two events was 60 people, and Fitzgerald Associates said this was one of the biggest meetings they had ever had people come to. So the committee at this time has no recommendation for the alternative to go forward with for future grant applications, and we will put that off until next year.
Okay.
Until after you've done all your work. You have an honors agenda today, so I'll let you get on with it.
Okay. So just to read, so we don't need to choose something in order to receive
You don't have to
the
do
funding or
anything,
like
no.
that. So
No,
this portion is basically complete.
that's what the state said, what we gave them
Okay.
with the 3 alternatives, we don't have to choose anything.
Okay.
At some point, it would be good to choose something,
Sure.
but, you know.
If we were to move forward on
we
that
just-
road, yeah.
Are you saying you expect to come back with a recommendation?
Or at least, well, the next thing would be if the town, the select board, wants to do a remediation on Sand Hill Road so that the one part that does wash out, it's usually just a partial washout, but it's enough to close the road. If we want to do something the town itself wants to do to apply for grants for, this grant had no, we did not have to give any money towards this grant. There was no match because it was an ARPA funded grant.
Mm-hmm.
But the next step would be to choose a project, and we would go with FEA's report and informing us with that, and may also make alterations in what the 3 projects would be. We actually, the committee feels that the flood bench should no longer be on the table because of how last year the brook was able to reach the floodplain. So to have large equipment going into a class 2 wetland we don't think it would be worth doing that. But enlarging culverts, and there are some problems that way the culverts were placed after Hurricane Irene or Tropical Storm Irene that created problems east of the west part of the bridge, because a lot of water was then made to go east instead of going straight through. So, and there were reasons for that at that time which proved not to be good ideas. So, we can all talk about that later.
Okay.
Well, I just wondered whether
Sure.
we would assume that you'll come back to us to talk to us about it, yeah?
Yeah, you can assume that.
Okay.
All right.
I'd like to know what I can take off my list and put on somebody else's.
That's why we have to. Are there any comments in the room about the report? Recommendations? Are there any comments online? Any comments on the select board? Okay. Thank you for your
Thank you.
report.
Thank you, Mary.
And I'll see you online. I'm gonna go home.
Okay, go home.
Bye.
All right, so the next thing is the Putney Fire and Rescue Advisory Committee. It's you, Peg.
Yeah, really Karen addressed it in her report. Community meetings been postponed until next week. And just to be clear, I mean, I've had some communication with some people who think that this is the task force ready to give their final recommendations that we're gonna pass on to the select board, but that's not quite where we are yet. We've done a lot of work, we've come to some consensus, but we have still more work to do, but we just thought this would be a good time to check in with the community, so. Don't come expecting to see the report that's gonna go to the town, because we're not there yet.
Okay. Any comments on select board about the task force. I'm glad it sounds like you're doing good work
Yeah, it's,
moving forward.
I think so.
Any comments online? Any comments in the room? Okay, moving forward to Selectboard New Business. The first one is the liquor license request for R.E.R. Agape LLC.
As you know, liquor licenses come through the office of the town clerk, and I'm happy to speak in favor of this application. Most of you know the applicant, former Citizen of the Year. She is here to support. When the Gleanery closed, the Putney Diner made arrangements to take over the tavern space. And since late summer, renovations have been going on in fits and starts, am I right?
Yes.
But they're just about to be ready. So what we're gonna have in what was the Gleanery, the tavern spot, is breakfast and lunch, 7 days a week, dinner
5 days a week.
5 days a week, which would include a full bar, and the bar has been renovated. And this is just part of that process so that we can get open. There's no character issues here, as all of the water, sewer, and everything has been paid. I would recommend that we approve this application.
Okay. Are there any questions from the select board about this application? Butcher, you're good?
I'm great. I'm looking forward to this.
Yeah, right?
I think we all are, Fletcher.
I have questions that are not relevant to the application. I just
What's
wonder.
the menu?
Right. Can you just give us a little update? Like, tell us how it's going and what, where you're at and what the.
We
Just give us
just
a
set
little
out the
update.
kitchen today. We are just waiting for somebody to connect our walk-in and some state inspections, and that's where we are at. Hopefully the inspection will be done before the end of the year and we can open on the 1st. That's the hope. And the bar is almost done. It'll be done Friday, and we've changed a little bit of the inside, just painting and refreshing everything. The kitchen is looking great, and so
Is
and
it
a
kind
new
of laid
bar.
out in the same way?
Yeah, it will be laid out in the same way. We couldn't much change the layout. That would require extensive permits, and we weren't. Even with the few permits that we had, we are having a hard time. So the layout is the same, but the bar changed. It's an actual bar now with proper equipment and everything. And I think the paint changed the space a lot. I think it's looking great. I'm very excited.
Okay, good. Are there comments online about this application?
One here from Alex Lacey, Windham Solid Waste. Just want to say welcome. Excited for you to open. And when and if you need any help with source separation, staff training on putting food scraps into compost or feeding animals, I'm your girl.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Any comments in the room? All right, hearing none, can I hear a motion to approve liquor license for R.E.R. Agape LLC, the Putney Diner?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the liquor license for R.E.R. Agape LLC, the Putney Diner. Any further questions or comments on the board? Okay, hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, got that one.
Thank you.
Got that one done. One less permit. That's the only one that we have for liquor license, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, so moving on to legislative review, which is Mike Mrowicki. Mike, do you have a presentation for us? Because we have something for you.
I do. Thank you for this opportunity. This is the time of year as we get ready for the next legislative session. I try and come to the board and share a little bit about what we're doing and hear what you have in mind. So here I am. I did want to thank you and thank the people of Putney and Dummerston for re-electing me for a resounding vote of confidence to take your concerns back to Montpelier. There are some strong messages from this recent election, and I can share that we had a briefing last week for all legislators in preparation, and I can say that there is a statewide sentiment that we need to take short-term and long-term steps to balance those needs of providing a quality education for our kids at an affordable cost. And we don't pretend it's easy. I think some of the pieces that are challenging are things you're looking at in your budget right now, starting with health insurance costs. I know in talking with our principal, they're trying to fit a budget into the governor's suggested 3% increase. And when you have health insurance costs rising 15, 17, 19%, it makes it really hard to bring a budget in at that level. But I think that they're working really hard. I know you're working really hard. And we will be working hard to make sure that we balance those needs. We hear that Vermonters are challenged. I think the thing I took away from a lot of this is how many people feel their homes being threatened by the costs of property taxes right now. And that shouldn't be. We like to think of Vermont as a progressive state where we take care of people, that taxes are based on what you can afford and who makes the most, and we're off track here. So there's some things we need to do. I think there's a strong sentiment to hear what the governor has to say, to hear his plans, and to work with him to make sure that by the time we leave after our 18-week session, that Vermonters will know that we heard them and we're addressing their concerns. The other piece that I want to bring to Montpelier is the recognition of what's broken with the reappraisal system. That I think we need to continue to update that so the metrics and formulas we use align with our goals again to make property taxes affordable and having that relation with people's ability to pay. I know you have gone through a lot of grievances, as have people across the state, with people who are faced with property tax bills that they just can't afford. I'm especially concerned when I hear from retirees, from people who are disabled and on a fixed income, that they just don't know where to go, what to do. So I want to thank you and the BCA for all the work you did. I think there are a lot of people that felt that they were heard and they were helped. And I know it's a lot more time that you all had to put in in doing the visits and the hearings. So thank you for that. And I want to say that I want to reassure you that you have a partner in Montpelier, and I think we're going to be all on the same page with that. I mentioned health insurance costs, and that's one of those pieces that we're going to have to look at too. Our whole healthcare system needs to be looked at because there's big problems with access right now. If anybody who's tried to access the system, I think, is running into problems. We're lucky to have a medical office right here in Putney, and I wanted to share that when I often talk about education funding and property taxes, I often hear from people, well, I don't have kids in school, so why do I have to be concerned about that? I think education really does benefit us all, and I like to remind people that these children are our future. And the children of today are going to be taking your blood pressure tomorrow. So don't we want them to be able to do it well? And at a recent meeting in Putney, Anna Oliver was there, and she raised her hand and said, that's me. I started here at Putney Central School, and now here I am at the Putney Medical Office as your medical provider. So I think the benefits of education go to all of us, and the challenge is how do we balance the idea of quality and an affordable cost. So that's going to be the big piece on our agenda. We keep getting reminded around the state about the reality of climate. We had more floods this year. Ironically, for instance, the town of Barry had a flood this summer on exactly the same day that the summer before they had a flood. And the damages the towns are having to cover are really growing, and it's something we need to look at, which is why last year we passed whoa.
So it is 6:38. Our break is done and our technical problems have been solved, hopefully. Mike, you were in the middle of something. Do you remember what you were?
I was.
Okay.
I was mentioning climate and the way the costs of climate are really hurting small towns across Vermont. And last year we passed the Climate Resiliency Fund, and our hope was that other states would similarly do that, and then we could gain some traction in going after the fossil fuel companies. Our sense is that Vermont taxpayers should not be paying for these damages, similar to the way tobacco companies were held responsible for the damages they did, for the way drug companies, the opioid manufacturers were held responsible. And similarly, we feel fossil fuel companies should be held responsible. That it's not Vermont taxpayers that should be paying for climate recovery, it's the fossil fuel companies that caused that. So the good news is this week New York State is passing a law based on what we did last year, and the hope is that as more states do that, we'll have a cohort that we can really make some difference here and start to bring some money back to Vermont to help pay for those costs. For a small town, as you know, in 2021, how much was the damage that was done by that storm in one night?
It's almost $1 million.
Yeah, that's a lot of money for a small town.
Yeah.
And that's happening all across Vermont. So we hope to be able to continue to do some work on that. The last big thing I'll mention is housing. When we talk about health insurance, when we talk about health care, when we talk about education, the economy, so many instances it points back to housing or the lack of housing. And I think there was a helpful article in Vermont Digger today talking about how some of the things we did to tweak Act 250 and lessen the regulatory burdens on developing are really starting to bear fruit. I think one of the things they pointed out was in Virgins, where there's a developer there, a private developer, I think, who's putting several hundred units of housing online. And across the state, we hope that we can continue. We need housing. There's still 10,000 jobs in Vermont that are going begging because we don't have the people here. We need to bring people to Vermont. And locally, you know, during the briefing we had last year, there was a lot of talk about housing. And I have to note that Gus Seeley, who's the executive director of the Vermont Housing and Conservation, pointed out some of the things to do to help make the way easier to get housing. And unfortunately, he highlighted the difficulties we've had here in Putney as how not to go about things and what we need to do to change our laws to continue to make it easier to build housing. And we're going to continue to look at things. We've seen what Massachusetts is doing right now. And I think they have a law right now where if you want to be an appellant to a process that has gone through several local layers already, you have to secure a bond, which can to cover the costs if you lose for the people that you've sued. And in that way, I think people should have some skin in the game if they're going to cause the kind of, for instance here, a 3-year delay where 25 families could have been housed. These are strong measures. I don't know if that's what we're going to do, but we're also going to continue to look and see how we can balance those needs of conservation and housing and ease the regulatory burden to make it easier for developers to come in. As we have had conversations throughout the year, I know there are some things that you're interested in having me bring up to Montpelier, and I think now's your turn to share what you have for me.
Okay. Before we go on, I do have a comment. Doug, you have your hand up?
Yes, can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Great. So I'm going to say in 1 minute what I'd like to spend an hour on Climate 102. The conventional wisdom is that we need to reduce emissions, and CO2 concentrations will go down and the temperature will go down, and that's not true. The reality is that the Arctic is warming 4 or 5 times faster than the rest of the planet. And therefore, the severe weather that we're experiencing is caused by the jet stream and the vortex dipping down deep into Texas and bringing heat way up into Alaska and Vermont. And the jet stream is the cause of all of the current weather disruptions. So I wanted to bring to Mike's attention that I read just the other day that Middlebury has a proposal to be voted on at their next town meeting to forever eliminate the injection of any aerosols, any chemicals into the atmosphere over Middlebury. And this is wrong-headed. We are headed toward an absolute requirement to inject some kind of salt, chlorine, calcium, chalk, dust, gypsum, whatever, into the stratosphere in the Arctic to cool the Arctic and refreeze the melting Arctic before it reaches a tipping point. And the methane starts coming out of solution, out of the subsea methane cathrates, which is when it starts, it's going to be unstoppable. So we are at a point where we have to go into some sort of research to figure out what's the answer. So I just want to put that on the table, Mike, that we have a bigger problem than just fighting fossil fuels. And that's the end of my story. But I'd like to spend an hour telling you the story. I talk with international scientists and engineers every week. I'm constantly on the email with them. This is what I do. So call me out if you want to talk. I'll be glad to talk. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. I have Alex.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that sentiment. And at the same time, that reducing CO2 won't bring our temperatures down, even if we went to net zero. And, this is all coming from reading research papers, not from me sampling the air. I will say that reducing methane will have a more immediate impact in reducing temperatures. And a huge source of methane is food scraps in a landfill. That's my bit.
Okay, thank you. We're getting to you soon. You are on the agenda. Are there other comments in the room? Heather, sorry.
I'm almost offended.
It happens all the time.
Just listen to our speaker talk about healthcare and housing in Vermont. I guess my question is, in reference to healthcare, how can we open the market up beyond 2 companies if we're talking about being able to afford the ever increasing cost of health insurance? Secondly, he made a comment about how to bring more people into Vermont, but I can't quite wrap my head around that if we're struggling to house the people who are already here.
Okay. So those are good comments.
Well,
hold on. Are there other comments online? And I don't want to necessarily have a back and forth here. These are just comments that other ideas that you can bring up too.
Sure. Well, thank you. Points well
taken. But if you have do you have anything else to add?
I'm here to hear your concerns.
All right. So to segue to that, as you are aware, we got a lot of good ideas and a lot of comments specifically when tax bills came out, and the select board specifically was given a lot of these ideas, and we basically came together and at first we're trying to come up with some tangible things that we could do in the short term to try to relieve the burden, and we came to the conclusion that we are pretty much powerless to do anything substantial. And so the next best thing we came up with was to write to our legislature. which is you. So I guess what I like from the select board, we vetted this last week, or 2 weeks ago, last meeting. It's substantially the same as what we agreed upon then. So I guess what I'd like to hear, unless there's substantial objection, what I'd like to hear is a motion to read it into the record, and then I'll go forward from there.
I'm comfortable with that.
Okay.
Because I was here at the last meeting.
Yeah.
Okay, so can I hear a motion to read the letter?
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to read this letter into the record. Is there other comments on the board? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay. So here we go. So this is to Representative Michael Mrowicki, Senator Wendy Harrison, and Senator Nader. Is it Nader? Nader Hashim. Re municipal and educational property tax reform. Dear Honorable Representative and Senators, congratulations to all on your re-elections to the Vermont State Legislature. It has been a tough year to be a public official, and we are grateful for your service to our state and our community. In response to our constituents, who were presented with large tax bills that many of them are simply unable to pay, the Putney Selectboard has been looking at ways that we might be able to help relieve the tax burden. To our dismay, our conclusion was that we had little to no avenues to do so, because the majority of the power to generate revenue does not currently lie with local select boards, but with the state. Because of this, the town of Putney Select Board has opted to formally petition you, our legislators. A common response from our legislators when faced with concerns about steeply rising taxes is that taxpayers themselves set the amount of taxes to be raised via their approval of town and school operating budgets. In the case of municipal taxes, that is in fact a reliable one-to-one relationship, although a large majority of the increases in municipal budgets are beyond town-level control. Since the state determines the educational tax rate after all local school budgets have been passed, it is a little disingenuous to apply the town's approved the budget's response to concerns about the education tax rate. An example of this can be seen in Putney, where we belong, against our will, it should be noted, to a consolidated school district. Putney voters were presented with a reasonable 2.7% increase, but were then handed a 13% increase from the state. This suggests that even if the voters of our school district drastically slashed the school budget in the name of lower taxes, there would not have been a corresponding decrease in the rate handed down by the state. Something is broken here. We, the Putney Select Board, on behalf of the people of Putney, ask that you, our elected representatives to the state legislature, help fix it. Specifically, we ask that 1, upon reconvening, you immediately pass retroactive relief to overburdened Vermont taxpayers who are now struggling to pay astronomically and unexpectedly high 2024 property tax bills. 2, going forward, you restructure school education funding in such a way that it more closely aligns with the actual budget increases or decreases passed by taxpayers, and find funding sources that do not center the majority of the burden on property owners. 3, you allow municipalities to seek a larger variety and a larger share of alternative revenues for municipal budgets. 1, increase the local options tax to allow for up to 2%. 2, lower the state's share of the local options tax to no more than 20%. And 3, increase the property transfer tax and directly provide the municipality in which a sale occurred with a portion of the proceeds. 4, you hold municipalities harmless for all exempt properties. By state statute, a wide variety of properties enjoy fully exempt status with no obligations to pay pilots to towns in which they reside, including county-held properties. In addition, the state limits pilot payments to a small subset of properties they may own in any given municipality. In essence, the tax burden to provide the necessary municipal services to these exempt properties is shifted onto the non-exempt taxpayers. In some towns, such as Putney, the amount of last tax revenue from these exempt properties is staggering. As of 2024, Putney's statutorily exempt properties, not including state or town-owned properties, are valued at $126,621,200, which means Putney annually loses out on $886,348 worth of tax revenue, based off of the Putney's 2024 tax rate of 0.7088. Many of these organizations operate on small budgets, and paying property taxes on their holdings would interfere with their missions. For this reason, the state should consider a hold harmless program to relieve the burden on exempt rich towns. Holding towns harmless from lost tax revenue is not new or controversial. The state currently holds towns completely harmless for any property enrolled in the land use value program. 5. Alternatively, you require properties currently exempt under the Public, Pious, and Charitable Statute 32 VSA 38024 to pay a pilot payment or reduce tax to the municipality they reside in. In closing, we know that solving the educational funding crisis that we all find ourselves in is complex and multifaceted. We also know that the legislature as a whole has promised to tackle this issue in the near term. As you do so, we hope that you take municipal funding issues into account as well. Thank you for your service and good luck in the coming term. Respectfully, Town of Putney. The end. Are there comments in the room about the letter that I just read? Are there comments online? Laura Chapman?
I just want to say thank you. That was brilliant, beautifully written, great ideas, and I wish all towns were thinking the way that you are. Very well done.
Okay, thank you. I guess that we've done that, so let's move on.
If I could.
Yes, go ahead.
Just respond. I also want to thank you. I'm well aware of the challenges that we have here in Putney, and especially the extraordinary challenges we have with as many schools as we do in here. And that's part of the challenge, that these are just not tax exempt school properties, they're schools.
Mm-hmm.
And there are special considerations that are given to schools. I think things should be needs-based when we look at how municipal dollars, how state dollars go, how exemptions. If you can prove a need, then like with any other benefit that comes, I think these could be needs-based. All the other considerations are certainly valid points, and you see them at the ground level, so it's really important for that to be brought to Montpelier, and it's something I look forward to doing.
Okay, great, thank you. Any other comments? Anything else on the board?
I have a question. Who's going to sign this?
I think we're all signing. Are we all signing?
No, you as chair on behalf of the board.
Okay. I guess I'm signing it. All right. So the next piece is the State of Vermont Ethics Commissioner deadline. So there are a couple of things, that one and also the open meeting law. Actually, the open meeting law, I think, went into effect in July, but I think there's some pieces to that that also go into effect in January, I'm not sure.
Mm-hmm.
But the one that we needed to talk about tonight is appointing an ethics, is it an ethics commissioner or an ethics liaison?
Liaison.
Because that's part of the law. And you went through the training today, right?
I did.
So now can you explain to us what you would be doing?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
Because Karen and I discussed this yesterday and today, and I sent an email to the Ethics Commission, and they're all out of the office on training, and there'll be a delay in responding to my email.
Okay.
I did do the training today. It's an hour program on YouTube.
Okay.
You fill out your name and give them your email address, and they send you a certificate that you've completed it.
Okay.
But what the statute essentially says is that certain employees, including select board members and the town manager, within 120 days of assuming office must do ethics training. This isn't really any different than the ethics policy the town already adopted.
Right.
You know, the rules are the same. You'll spend some time, hopefully we're gonna find a shorter one, because this YouTube video had an AI voice that just absolutely drove me bonkers. It's not applicable, you know, it's applicable. You know, so the training is, I'm gonna find more information.
Okay.
But I have the bandwidth that I can add this to my
Okay.
list of job duties, because we have to have one.
So I think part of what's, well, first of all, this supersedes our old ethics policy, which is unfortunate because ours also had applied to committees and commissions, and I would assume that the state would like to have everybody be above board and not just elected officials. So that's one thing that I think you should bring back. I don't think this law is ready for prime time. The other piece is that it adds some reporting requirements to the towns to report if there are ethics violations, that kind of reporting, which is really just busy work and is not going to make us be above board. So we're doing this under duress. But I personally do not believe that this bill is going to do what it was intended to do. I'm all for having a uniform municipal ethics policy. That makes a lot of sense to me. But it doesn't make any sense that we can't modify our own or go further if we want to. And it really doesn't make any sense that we have to have these burdensome reporting requirements. It's just putting more unfunded mandates on already strapped employees. Go ahead.
So can we tweak our current ethics?
It's been superseded. They actually
I'm not sure our current policy is inconsistent with
right.
the new
It
policy.
seems like our current policy though includes boards and commissions and committees. So could we have a separate ethics policy related just to those folks?
Possibly.
So it's an addendum to this. We're not changing this, but we're keeping our ethics, what we're currently doing, by adding it. You know.
It would depend on who you ask. If it's a Dillon's rule state and we're not allowed to do anything that the legislature specifically says we can do, then we wouldn't be able to write a policy. I'm not of that persuasion, but we might get pushback if we tried to do that. That's all I'm saying. It doesn't specifically say that we're allowed to do that, and I think that would be something that should be tweaked in the language.
If you can include that in your letter to me, then
I can send it to you as an email, yeah.
See about that.
Yeah. So, but anyway, that's neither here nor there because we have to appoint a ethics liaison. Jonathan has graciously said he would do it. So, can I hear a motion to appoint Jonathan Johnson as our ethics liaison?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to appoint Jonathan Johnson as our ethics liaison. Are there further comments on the board? Fletcher, do you have anything? Okay.
No, I'm good with that.
All right. Are there comments online? Comments in the room? Hearing none? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay. And then moving on to the Open Meeting Law Act. Again,
Thank you, Jonathan.
there were these
Yeah,
changes.
thanks, Jonathan.
Thank you, Jonathan. There were some changes to that as well. One of the two major ones, well, the one major one is that our meetings must be recorded. any non-advisory board, meaning ones that have some kind of legislative power, so the select board, the planning commission, the lister board,
Development Review Board.
development review board, cemetery commissions, must record their meetings. And then we must store them somewhere. We are sort of de facto using BCTV right now as our recording repository for the select board. I'm going to assume that that's okay, but we probably should double check with Larry that we don't have to keep additional recordings.
We do have Zoom recordings.
How long do we keep them for?
Good
I
question.
don't know how long we have to keep them for either.
Right.
So, so that's for Putney, we were already doing it, so it's not an added burden for us necessarily, but there are times when, say, like when we did the joint planning commission and select board walk outside, there's no way for us to record that. If we wanted to do a tour of any of the facilities of town, we wouldn't be able to record that. We're not gonna have BCT follow us around. So it limits our ability to do those kind of out of the box things and engage with citizens in that way. And I'm not even gonna get into the burden that it places on towns that don't have these pieces of equipment. I understand the sentiment, but it just seems like an unreasonable requirement to require recordings of meetings. The other piece of the law, which I do like, is that it does allow for advisory committees to meet remotely, totally remotely, so they've extended that, and I think that's a good part of the law. And I understand why you wouldn't do it for advisory, non-advisory committees. So anyway, I feel like that law has some tweaking to do as well. Okay.
Are we currently recording all of those boards, commissions, blah, blah, blah?
I think we are now, because they started in July, right?
Right.
BCT.
Not BCTV, just record, like Zoom
Just-
recordings.
Just select board is BCTV.
So how are we recording those other meetings?
Zoom.
If they're hybrid anyway, we just record off of there. Excuse me, I'm using my voice.
So I can tell you the planning commission, they have their own Zoom account, which could, probably need to look at that.
Yeah.
And I think there might be one or two other committees that have their own Zoom account. And those meetings, I can tell you, are not being stored here.
Okay. So I don't know, assuming that the recording piece sticks around, we probably should make some kind of policy for other committees and a central repository, which is probably a conversation with CCI.
Yes, because it takes up a lot of storage.
Takes up a lot of storage.
Right.
Or possibly the state could come up with some kind of cloud storage for us.
It'd be nice if they pilot a program and then rolled it out to the towns to see if it was actually
gonna work. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, they took testimony. I testified on this bill. And I was in a bad position because we already do what this says, so I couldn't really make it about that. But I did say that they were tying our hands in some way and making busy work again.
Right.
So I don't know. It just didn't. I mean, a lot of towns objected to it. I just didn't feel like anybody was listening.
Right. One other comment I want to make, and it may come into effect on January 1st.
Yeah.
Is open meeting law. On our website, we need to post where people can file a complaint.
Yes.
So we have to set it up on the website.
Yep.
For the public.
Yeah.
So that's
The ethics-
new.
The ethics law,
Yes.
yeah. And I think, there's also mandatory training on the ethics piece, I think, or on what open meeting law, or maybe both. As opposed to optional training that VLCT gives us anyway, it's now mandatory, and they haven't come up with what the training will be, so.
Are you talking about specific complaints about open meeting law, specific complaints about ethics?
I think
Or
that's for
any complaints
ethics.
about the town at all?
Which we might wanna do anyway, like, it's good to
Yeah.
have like a complaint form for areas of concern,
Be
but no, for
careful what
ethics.
you ask for.
Well, then that question is, who do those go to, and what, like what?
Yeah.
If there's an ethics.
So if there's a violation, it would come to the select board.
But they're complaining about us.
No, but let's just say there's something that, wasn't on the agenda and we voted on it,
Right.
that could be
Well,
a
that's
clear
yeah.
violation, right?
That's open meeting law complaints, yeah.
Right.
I was thinking more of ethics violations.
Oh, well.
Well, hopefully our
Ma-
ethics
yeah,
liaison is going to manage
Yeah,
those issues.
Mhm.
right.
Now, has equity and inclusion come across anything like that? Ethics violations, and,
No, not that I'm aware of.
okay. With all your research with DEI, I thought maybe,
Yeah. No,
okay.
sorry.
Don't apologize.
Like comments online, Doug?
Hi, me again. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
So the word complaint just went right through my head, and it's like, oh my God, it brought back memories. So my career ended at the California EPA, Air Resources Board, and I don't know if any of you really know what that's all about, but we all had targets on our back from NGOs and fossil fuel companies and you name it. So we had really severe requirements for responding to public complaints or public comments on rulemaking. And I was responsible for documenting at least two and parts of another. We had to take the actual letter that somebody wrote and dissect it down to point A, point B, point C, and make a table as to what the complaint was or suggestion and what the board, the Air Resources Board, was going to do about it. So my question is, and I'm kind of a professional and kind of an amateur at this. I'm an amateur definitely in Vermont. So I got involved with the Energy Committee when I first got here, and the open meeting law or open meeting rules or whatever it was called was brought up during a meeting, and I quickly learned about it, but there was no training. So the question is there any formal training for people like me who try to do their best? And what are the requirements in terms of, for example, in the California EPA, you had to write a document within the rulemaking that showed all of the complaints or suggestions or whatever applause and respond to it in a documented form. So my question is, where can we learn about that?
Where can you learn about open meeting law?
What's required? For example, documenting what people said and what the response was in a formal documentation of some sort.
Well, I mean, there's several components to open meeting law. I don't think I want to rehash them here, but I mean, in essence, the public has a right to hear the meeting, be in the meeting as spectators, and there needs to be it needs to be warned within a certain amount of time. And then there needs to be a written account, minutes of the meeting and actions taken. And now, on top of that, there are some other requirements for boards like ours where we need to record the meeting in case people want to listen to it. I mean, it's a fairly extensive law. I could go through it with you offline if you like.
It's
And as far-
on the website.
Yeah, it's on the website, but also, I mean, as far as training is concerned for committee members, I mean, that is actually something that we've talked about in the past. If the state does come out with some kind of uniform training, that, you know, everyone can take, that would be, you know, that'd be really awesome. Because right now it kind of falls on the chair of the, whatever committee it is, to perform the training, and if they're not necessarily all that up to it, you know, if it's a totally new committee and everybody's new to government, you know, some things could get missed. So hopefully that happens, that we can have some kind of formal training for everybody. Mike.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, and Doug, one place you might look is the website for the Vermont League of Cities and Towns. If they don't have anything right there, they were pretty active in helping put this together. So I would hope, as the providers of services and trainings for cities and towns, that if they don't have something now, that they will.
So the Vermont Secretary of the State has information as well.
Okay.
And I would go there first
Yeah.
before I went to the LCT.
Yeah, actually, a VLCT is great for some things, but especially if you're not a member, it's kind of hard to find stuff.
It's changed a lot in the
It has.
last year and a half.
But anyway, if anybody, you go ahead.
And make one more comment. I have contacted the, well, what I did was I Googled and I found several documents, and one of which was authored, or at least I have the name of Jennifer Prosser. And I had some communication which was contradictory, so I don't know the right answer. And she said, well, you need to talk to an attorney. It's like, I don't really want to talk to an attorney. Sorry, Fletcher.
Okay, well, we could talk more offline about open meeting law if you like.
All right, thank you.
I have Robin or Mary. Hands up.
Yeah, it's me. Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, Eileen, I would second everything that you said, with the exception of the law is rather complicated. Doug, as I'm sure you're aware, all Vermont statutes are available online. A simple search for Vermont open meeting law will take you to the section of the statute. I guess, yeah, it is a little bit complicated, but it's the concept is very straightforward, making sure that topics aren't either placed on an agenda or decided in a meeting without people having the opportunity to weigh in. So the statutes themselves are pretty self-explanatory. You don't need any legal training. Put it this way, if I can understand them, anybody can understand them. So, you know, I would strongly encourage you just to read the law and go from there. Thank you.
Yeah, I guess complicated was the wrong word. I guess I personally would get into the weeds of the more esoteric things, like when you need to warn a meeting and all that. But that's what I say. Let's do that offline. I don't want to have a whole discussion about open meeting in an open meeting when it's 7:15 and we still have some things to get through.
And we have guests.
Sorry, guys. Okay, so are there other comments online about either the Ethics Commission or the open meeting law? New open meeting law? Any comments in the room? Mike?
I just wanted to thank you. Most of these things you've shared with me are things we've talked about over the year, and I appreciate the opportunity to be that conduit to bring that to Montpelier. So look forward to continuing those conversations, and at any time, if you have suggestions, if anybody has suggestions or questions, please feel free to get in touch with me. Our emails are on the legislative website, or I have the easiest phone number in Putney to remember. It's 387-8787.
Oh, wow.
Operators are standing by to take your calls now.
Okay. All right, thank you. Are there any other comments? Online? In the room? On the select board? Okay, moving on. To the Windham Solid Waste Management Food Scrap Hub Pilot Program.
Sure.
Can I?
Get her up, yeah, go ahead.
So, thank you for letting us give you this presentation. I'll keep it brief. I want to acknowledge Dan Toomey, who is your representative to Windham Solid Waste. He's been very active. I've been in the job 12 years as executive director. Dan is chair of our policy personnel committee and therefore on our executive board. So it puts a lot of time into the district.
I'm in my 23rd.
Appreciate it.
23rd, yeah.
Wow.
Thank you.
And then, and also you, each town could have an alternate in addition if you
We
were
know
ever
that.
thinking, and we talked about that with Karen. Alex Lacey, who's chimed in a couple times tonight, is our program's outreach coordinator, and she's participating in this. So what I'm here to do is offer a pilot program to the town. There's absolutely no commitment. It's just an opportunity to help us explore expanding food waste collection options in rural areas. This is a pilot project which I wrote up a summary of what it would do. And we met with Karen, Alex and I did, to explore this idea. She said, hey, I think it's worth bringing to the select board. There's no cost to the town at this point. Obviously, if this pilot was to be continued, there'd have to be some financing figured out, but that's part of the pilot. So in the terms of the memo, we have U.S. Department of Agriculture funding to spend up to $18,500 to conduct this. We've considered many other areas in the district. We have 18 towns, and a large portion of our towns don't have any opportunities for food scrap drop-off. Where a town has a transfer station, that's mandatory that there be drop-off areas. We have 7 towns with those transfer stations, but most of the other towns have no. So, Putney, why? You don't have a transfer station. There's no food scrap hauler that we're aware of that serves residents. There are some haulers serving businesses and schools in Putney. You have a very educated population in terms of environmental ethics. That's been demonstrated over the years when the solid waste districts had our recycling boxes at the town fire station and now park and ride lot. There was just an overwhelming use of those containers.
And they were regularly the cleanest,
yes.
the smallest amount of contamination of any in the district. Most years, I think we could say.
So we closed that processing facility in 2017 by a vote of the board. Anyway, we think Putney's a place that would make this work. You also have some centrally located areas like the community garden, and now with future multifamily housing come there, it could be a really good location. We did look at the following sites: the Putney Co-op, their parking lot, and the new property they're purchasing to expand. The community garden, we looked at park and ride, we looked at the fire station, the town pool, which has had, a collection of returnables, could be another future site. Even the Baskerville property could be, and there's probably some others. We're not recommending any particular site right now. We're just pointing out the pros and cons. In the handout, we have some photographs of those sites that we looked at. We would plan this project between now and March, and then try to pull the trigger 1st of April. At 6 months, the project would pay for a hauler to collect those food scraps. It would pay for the facility to be set up. It would pay for the evaluation and education and training. We would do evaluations throughout the project, and give a recommendation and a final report at the conclusion in September. Part of that would be, how do you continue this? In a packet, and I'll let Alex weigh in if she wants, but to not drag this out, we have a handout which shows other facilities that are operating in the region. The one that I like the best is in Gill, just south of the state line, and there's some pictures showing that. They have an enclosure that the public has a lock combination. They can open it and put their food scraps in there. It keeps unauthorized use, keeps animals out. It also has the cover. And then Alex Lacey, prior to working with Windham Solid Waste, worked for a food scrap collection company called Elm City Compost from Keene, who brings their materials to Windham Solid Waste. And she has direct hands-on experience picking up food scraps. And the Monadnock Food Co-op in Keene has a setup that's featured in our handout too. So we would be glad to have you think about this, and we don't have to decide tonight, and say, yeah, we think this is a good idea, and we think, for instance, community garden, which I think might be the best spot. We have reached out to those folks to see what they think. So this is just a very preliminary concept at this point.
Okay.
So, Alex, did you want to add anything? I know there's a lot you are carrying around in your head.
Yeah, always carrying a lot in my head. Yeah, no, we just wanted to pitch this to you guys. Thought that it was a great opportunity for Putney, but it's up to the public and what they want. This is an easy way to get rid of organics if you're not composting on your own. It's a direct, tangible action that, you know, for a nerd like me, that feels good. But yeah, as a previous hauler, I can offer at least a little bit of expertise on what makes a site successful. So excited to see what you all think.
The other part of this equation is that the Windham Solid Waste Management District is just now completing construction of a new enclosed composting facility. It's been a project in the works for over 5 years. It's about $1 million facility, so we're in this for the long run, provide infrastructure for organics management, which is a state mandate. Coincidentally, in yesterday's Brattleboro Reformer was an article about the selection of projects by the Brattleboro Development Credit Corporation, and 83 projects were considered as models for economic development, and ours was one of them. I was surprised, frankly, but it resonated across Bennington County and Windham County that there's a need for this. I think the model that might work here, we would start with just say 50 households to keep it manageable and the cost managed, and then see how it goes. And we would look at having a subscription service, because otherwise it would be falling on a town that, you know, obviously is facing many financial challenges. Especially if I'm sitting here tonight, I'm realizing that. But I'm also live in a small town facing the same thing, so I feel, so we would look at creative ways to make it happen. So anyone in this select board that want to ask questions, please go ahead.
Yeah, so
Eileen, yeah.
With the development of the new facility, would it be able to handle commercial compostable?
You mean the
like,
pilot project?
No, yeah.
It could, but we were planning to just start with residential.
Okay, I'm
And-
thinking more like, like the plastic spoons and the things that don't really break down and
Oh, no.
household compost.
Oh, yes.
Is
Yeah,
it
because it
able
would come to
get-
our facility.
and that, so
We handle
so you can handle
everything.
all of that stuff.
But I thought you were talking about commercial generators.
No. Yeah, this is.
Because they are served. There's Ruggiero and other companies that serve the Putney School and some restaurants, and so
Okay.
they have business that's just really growing around this initiative. But residents, they don't have any options. Backyard composting, of course.
Right.
And Alex trains. We had 2 workshops in November for backyard. We have a whole bunch of different options there. But that's not always easy for some people, so if they could, on their way to shop at the co-op, drop a little baggie and be done.
Yeah. Do you know what the schools are doing? Like Putney Central School, what do they do?
Yes, they have collection programs.
They have a composter.
Yeah, almost all the schools in the district, for quite a few years, have had food scrap diversion programs.
Okay, and then I assume the co-op does as well?
Yeah.
Okay.
We also produce a product, compost, that is marketed throughout the region. We have 5 distributors: Allen Brothers, Renault Tree, D&E Tree, Maple Hill Nursery, Boyd Family Farm. So we distribute this. I say it's the only recyclable product that stays local. You know, your bottles and cans and paper and cardboard, they're going to distant markets. It's been a very successful project, and the district has put in hundreds of thousands of dollars of our revenue, excess budget. Thank goodness we've had a few good years. We've got a state of Vermont grant and a USDA grant, so that first phase is all covered with those funds. So it's not coming out of any indebtedness or bonding.
I have a question. So I use your composting at the
Windham Solid Waste.
At Windham Solid
Oh, by the way,
Waste.
there's over 400 households in Putney that have access stickers.
Oh, interesting. And
You're one of them.
But that just because we have access stickers doesn't mean people use the composting, right?
No, not at all.
Right. So so the composting.
But I'll bet
that's-
you, most of them.
Yeah. Well, the composting that's there, that's the system that's going to change, that you're upgrading, that you're doing, or.
We're not, what do you mean it's not changing?
Well, you said you're creating a new.
Well, it's just a high-tech enclosed facility.
Okay.
It's not changing our feedstocks, it's not changing.
Right. I just was curious how.
It won't affect the people who donate the material to us at all. No.
Yeah.
They'll continue to do it the same way.
In the same way, okay. I think it's a great project. You know, I'd be very, very curious. And the whole thing about the sites, which sites are most accessible, that must be an
That is
interesting
key.
challenge. Yeah.
I mean, right now, we're thinking community garden. Just quickly, the co-op's so busy and it gets congested. I actually came up Saturday just to sit there for an hour and watch. And
Right, yeah, it's gotta be.
I mean, I don't live here, so I have to, but,
Yeah.
And the fire station, it's complicated, it's on state land, there's a lease, that's not anything that's the park and ride, we got a determination yesterday, Alex did, and that's that's in our memo that it is absolutely not allowed on that state property.
Oh,
good.
It has to be related
Because
to
you
a
can see how
transfer.
busy it is.
I mean, it was a state
I
sort
was
of.
gonna say that's the perfect site.
When we had the recycling containers there, it had a state certification and it was
Yeah.
all permitted.
I was gonna ask,
But
because
we
that's
gave
where
that
that was.
up, and
Okay.
so.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, we'll rest that parking lot
So I'll just
sometime,
wait to hear from Karen.
Yeah.
If you want to move ahead with this, we'd like
I mean,
to
as far
probably make.
as a lot of these, obviously the Putney Co-op, the community garden, and the old Basketville property, those are private property, and the park and ride, obviously, and the fire station are out. So as far as the select board is concerned, the only one on here that we would have direct control over is the town pool.
Yeah.
But,
And that's not ideal this time of year.
no,
We thought that might be a future site, you know, or like seasonal, like they did with the bottles and cans.
yeah,
That was very successful. You had, you know, I don't know, thousands of dollars collected.
yeah, yeah.
I'd like to add something about winter. You know, if this is something that proves to be successful, you will want an accessible area during the winter months because that's when a lot of home composters tend to drop off.
Yeah, it's hard to trudge through the snow.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, anyway, yeah, we'll, do you have a drop dead date that we need to?
Well, I would say sometime in January maybe, if
Okay.
you could.
All right,
There's
So-
not a lot of planning once we
Okay.
say, hey, do it there.
Okay.
We have to order equipment, we have to set it up, we have to negotiate with a hauler,
yeah,
and we'll handle it all.
okay. So you're looking for a central, some sort of central location.
Yeah, and you may have some other ideas. This all got put together in 2 weeks, so.
Okay.
So thank you.
Well, sounds
Thank you.
fascinating,
Yeah.
thank you.
All right.
Are there any comments online for the public? Karen?
So I just want to say thank you for presenting this to the board. Like the animal control pilot program that started with two towns and grew to 10. This program, I like it. I like it a lot. I think it would work here in Putney. And who knows, it can grow into something bigger, maybe at a different location. And I also want to thank the board for acknowledging that the fire station is not a preferable site because of the state lease.
It's unfortunate, that land is totally underutilized and it's unfortunate that it's locked up that way, but it is.
Maybe we read that in a letter from Michael too.
Right.
Did I say that out
Too
loud?
many disparate. Come, yeah.
All right.
Fight that battle
Yeah.
later.
Well,
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you for hanging
You're
out
welcome.
with us.
Okay, next is Green Commons request for letter of support. That's Louise. Are you still with us?
I'm with you.
Good, thanks for hanging in there.
You're welcome. I'll try to be brief. As you may know, Green Commons is going to be the umbrella as owner of the current garden and market properties that are now owned by Windham Windsor Housing Trust, but there are final steps in all of this happening. Probably in March, we will own the land. And the Vermont Housing Conservation Board is the key funder, and it will also hold the easement on the property, which of course conserves the land for perpetuity. And we have to do everything from say no vehicles driving on it except the market vehicles and lots of boilerplate. But there is the requirement that we run the management plan, which is still in the draft form by our board, that we run it by the town and the townspeople. We're trying to figure out how to do this because there's no specifics. So mostly what I've done is write the planning commission and write the board of selectmen and Karen and say, could you think about if you have any questions or concerns? And you may have some tonight. In the next 10 days, we hope to send out the draft once it's been approved by VHCB. You'll have a little more clarity on the whole thing. Just to see if there's anything you want to weigh in on. And we expect the planning commission with Sue at the helm to perhaps do a heavier weigh-in. Just depends what you all think about it. So if you have any questions about timeline, what Green Commons is doing, why is there an easement, we could at least answer those tonight and then give you time to think about it when you think about the compost pilot.
Right. So can we put a compost thing on?
Well, I don't know who's been interviewed about this. That's my first question is who's talked to them. I don't know at this point. We don't own the land yet. We're renting it from Windham Windsor.
Right. Yeah, probably premature to ask that question, but I mean, I know that the community garden already has compost bins, so Anyway, yeah, so I mean, I don't specifically have any questions. I think, having been involved in some conservation easements, I mean, the main thing you want to make sure of is that you don't, pigeonhole yourself into something that you don't expect. So, you want to think carefully about what you will and will not allow on that piece of land. But in general, I mean, the town, it's private property and it will remain private property. So the town, although we can have an opinion about it, doesn't really have much say. I mean, I think as far as the town is concerned, I think there might be, in the future, there might be a sidewalk on one side there. But
That is in the plan.
Okay, so I can't imagine that would, that's in the plan.
Once the housing portion is, we'll see where the sidewalk ends. It's supposed to be the safe route to the co-op.
Right.
And I think Karen told me that you're hoping that all sidewalks will be shoveled or plowed by the town. We'll see where that is at that point. Lots of bridges to cross when we get to them.
Yeah. So I mean, just as far as the town is concerned, that's the only thing I can think of. Possibly that, if we need to revamp that road in some way, reconfigure it,
Right.
that we have the option to do that. But I have a feeling that the town would be able to do that regardless of whether there was an easement on the property, if we got right down to it anyway.
I think so.
So anyway, does anybody in the public have any questions or concerns about Green Commons taking over that property and putting a conservation easement on it? Any general concerns online? Anybody in the room? Anybody on the select board have any concerns or questions we should be asking other than the ones I already mentioned?
No, but I think it's exciting, Louise. I think it'll be great to have that permanently dedicated space, for the Green Commons.
Yeah, and I'm really glad that you're able to move forward at this point. I know you've been waiting for a long time to move forward on this.
Yes, we're pretty excited.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Maybe by next summer we'll own it.
That's nice.
It's resting right now under our new snow.
Right.
Well, we'll have more contact certainly with you as the
and you're scheduled to meet with the planning commission at some
Yes.
point? Okay. They may have better questions.
I have one question that I
ahead.
just
Yeah.
thought of. So with this conservation easement, I know there's like composting piles happening right now. Are those gonna go away? How is that gonna be managed with that property?
on the Green Commons side of the property. It's mostly garden weeds and brush. We don't put much food in there just because of the possible varmints that would come further and eat what's growing in the garden. So I don't quite get what your concern might be about the compost piles.
Well, I suppose if the food scrap pilot program ends up over there, it probably wouldn't matter. It might, anything that.
Well, if that's something that Green Commons would be amenable to, it would be a conversation between them and VCHB, who's holding the easement, to make sure that would be that's just one of those things that you'd want to make sure that you have some leeway, to make decisions like that without running afoul on the easement language, that's all.
Yeah.
I see what you're saying, yeah. And we'd have to get a sense of the expected amount of waste that would pile there.
Right.
I don't think it's going to be an easy go ahead with that, but
I'm not sure that's the best place to put it. And other things that I can think of is like, if you were to build a hoop house and wanted to move it, just make sure that, that they're gonna allow you to move it to another part of the property without, again, running afoul of the easement language.
yes, we have that in our draft and we'll see what happens next.
Okay. All right, well, it sounds like you're on it, so.
Well, if anything comes up between now and then, you know where to find me, and I appreciate your sticking in there too with all of this agenda. You've got miles to go before you sleep.
I think we're almost, well, maybe we're not. Okay, never mind. All right. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Okay, moving on to select board old business. Are these just reminders?
Yes.
Okay, good. So we're reminding everybody that the Community Service Award nomination, I assume, is due by December 20th. As well as the dedication of the town report, select board.
Which is you.
Oh, that's us. Never
That's
mind.
you.
So we have to come up with a dedication, which we can do in executive session at some point. Town report, student artwork cover. So I don't know how far and wide this got announced, but there is a call for students to make some kind of cover for the town report.
It's been out there for a while.
So did we send it to Landmark? That would have been a really, in the future, to the art, there's a whole art degree at Landmark now, and you know, a bachelor's degree in integrated arts, so there's a bunch of art students, and just in the future, let's just try to remember to put that out.
Rachel.
I did send it to every school contact that I could find from pre-K all the way up through to Landmark. So I don't know if it got through to all the appropriate people, but I went and just tried to get it out to every sort of educational homeschool group as well.
Great, thanks, Rachel.
All right. So, anybody have an artist in your family? Make them get to work. Okay, so the next piece is select board reports. Does anybody have anything to report on any of their select board reports? I'm just gonna put it out that way.
That's
a great way to do it.
So we
I got nothing
publicly shitting us.
I got nothing for the Cannabis Control Board. Karen, myself, and Libby did meet for the Recreation Department last week. Very limited group, great discussion, but I would like to see more people show up.
Okay.
More brain power.
Okay. All right. Anybody else have anything to report? I don't. But sure you don't. Okay. All right. Last but not least is public comment on items not on the agenda. Is there any public comments in the room? Are there public comments online on items not on the agenda? Okay. Moving on. Are we still thinking about executive session?
Totally up to you. It's 7:45.
I know. How long do you think it'll take?
Right. Less than 5 minutes.
And are we making a decision? Would we be making a decision?
Well, yeah.
We
Yes.
would be? Okay.
Yeah, you should. Yeah.
Let's go for it.
Let's go for it. Okay. So before we're going to go into executive session, but before we do that, our next meeting date is a special meeting, December 18th, 2024, budget discussion, and then our next regular scheduled meeting is January 8th, 2025. Yes. Not going back in time, because we're taking the week of Christmas, the holiday off. All right, so can I hear a motion to go into executive session under Title I VSA 313A3, the appointment or employment or evaluation of a public officer or employee, provided that the public body shall make a final decision to hire or appoint a public official or employee in an open meeting and shall explain the reasons for its final decision during the open meeting and invite Karen in.
So moved.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded to go into executive session under Title I VSA 313A3 and invite Karen in, and we will be making a decision. So that's fun.
Hopefully.
Okay.
Maybe
Karen, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right. Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Bye, Heather.
Bye. Okay, so it is 8:10, and we're coming out of executive session. We came to the conclusion that we wanted to wait until our January regularly scheduled January 8th meeting to make a decision. So can I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thanks everyone.
Okay.
Good night, Fletcher.
Did not lose.